Back in the 50s, when I was just a lad of 14 or 15, I enjoyed hiking and camping, and whenever possible, I would head to our part of the Pennine chain, often known as the backbone of England. Pennine Way is 268 miles long. It runs from Edale in the Peak District of Derbyshire, around the eastern edges of Lancashire and Greater Manchester, through the Yorkshire Dales, past the Cambrian Fells, to the Cheviot Hills on the Anglo-Scottish border. North of the Air Gap, the Pennine's western spur into North Lancashire forms the Bowland Fells, and south of the gap is the spur into East Lancashire, comprising the Rosendale Fells, the West Pennine Moors. As a Manchester lad, my preferred area was in a triangular shape between Hayfield, the Snake Pass and Glossop. It took in many well-known areas like Kinderscout, the Downfall, down to the Snake Pass, and had to snake in about halfway. It was good for an easy 2-day hike. A few of us would leave Bellevue railway station on a Saturday morning and head for Hayfield, a small village at the foot of the Pennines. That's where we would start our hike through the hills to the Snake Pass and on to Glossop.
I've been over Snowdon, I've slept up on Crowdon, I've camped by the Wainstones as well.
Hayfield, our jumping off point. We would go through the village and head for the Pennine Way. Past the Kinder Reservoir, then into the hills towards Kinderscout and the Downfall.
I think I would rather be dead. I'm a rambler from Manchester way. I get all my pleasure.
Cairns of stones mark the way to the top, and you can add one as you go by. Kinder is moorland plateau in the dark peak area of the Peak District. Part of the moor, at 636 metres above sea level, is the highest point in the Peak District. Kinder is also the highest point in Derbyshire and the East Midlands. As you near the top of Kinder, more cairns and a marker can be seen on the summit at the top, and if the weather is very good, you can see Manchester as well as Winter Hill near Bolton and the mountains of Snowdonia in North Wales, and to the north across the Snake Pass are the high moors of Bleaklow and Black Hill. The Kinder Downfall is the tallest waterfall in the Peak District. With a 30-metre fall, it lies on the River Kinder and flows west over one of the gritstone cliffs on the edge of the plateau. Usually no more than a trickle in summer, in spate conditions it is impressive. In certain strong winds, especially a strong westerly wind, the water is blown back on itself and the resulting cloud of spray can be seen from several miles away. Below the downfall, the River Kinder flows into the Kinder Reservoir.
I may be a wage slave on Monday, but I am a free man on Sunday.
In cold winters, the waterfall freezes, providing local mountaineers with an icy challenge that can be climbed with ice axes, ropes and crampons.
And the blue of her eye matched the June moorland sky, and I would have from April till June. On the day that we should have been married, I went for a ramble instead. For sooner than part from the mountains, I think I would rather be dead. I'm a rambler, rambler from Manchester way. I get all me pleasure the hard moorland way. I may be a wage slave.
We did not always go to the top of Kinder. Sometimes we would skirt the foothills, but we always ended up at the Snake Pass, and would stop for a drink and a feed at the Snake Inn. Then along the pass, and then left back into the hills. Mostly we would ask a farmer if we could camp overnight in his field. Many planes have crashed in the Pennines, and if we had turned right from the Snake Pass, we would have headed to Bleaklow, where an American B-29 crashed in 1948, killing all of the 13 crewmen.
I'm a rambler from Manchester way. I get all me pleasure the hard moorland way. I may be a wage slave on Monday, but I am a free man on Sunday.
On the 3rd of November 1948, the B-29, nicknamed Overexposed, of the US Air Force 16th Photographic Reconnaissance Squadron, took off from RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire on a routine flight, bound for the US Air Force Base at Burtonwood near Warrington, a journey that should have taken about 25 minutes. The moors of the Peak District were shrouded in low cloud that day, and so the crew were flying on their instruments. When pilot Landon Tanner believed sufficient time had passed to clear the Pennine Hills, he attempted to descend below the cloud base to verify the plane's position. Unfortunately, they were just a few hundred yards short of clearing the high ground, and they crashed on Shelf Moor at the southern edge of Bleaklow. It's unlikely they ever saw the ground. Two mountain rescuers, who had just completed a training exercise nearby, were first on the scene. However, the aircraft was already well ablaze, and nothing could be done to save the 13 crew members. Today, 63 years on, large amounts of the wreckage still remains, along with a memorial stone to the crew, laying just after the 40th anniversary of the disaster.
I never went there myself, but a few friends brought back small pieces of the aircraft after their visits. As it was National Park, many things were not allowed in the Pennines. We were not allowed to camp, and if the rangers caught you, they would delight in moving you on, even in the middle of the night. I had this air rifle confiscated and had to call to the ranger's hut on my way home to get it back. This is one of the boys, Jack, resting on the hills. The next day we would finish the hike into Glossop. If we had a long weekend, we may camp the night on a hill called the Royal, just where the bridge crossed the stream on the way down from the hills. Otherwise we would catch the train from Glossop back to Gorton. I never knew I was able to walk the hills and moors of the Pennines because of what a group of Manchester boys and girls had done over 25 years before, when back in 1932 they decided these hills and the moors should be available to all the people. Thanks to Wikipedia and the times in which we live, I have been able to learn their story. The mass trespass of Kinder Scout, an act of wilful trespass, took place in the Peak District near Hayfield, Derbyshire, on the 24th of April 1932. Led by the Young Communist League of Manchester to highlight the fact that walkers in England and Wales were denied access to certain areas of open country. The trespass began at Bowden Bridge Quarry near Hayfield. It proceeded via William Clough to the plateau of Kinder Scout. The disused quarry at Bowden Bridge was chosen by the trespass leaders on the day in 1932 to rally the Ramblers before setting off for Kinder Scout. The police had been trying to serve an injunction on Benny Rossman all the previous week, but they had not managed to locate him. On the day of the trespass, every railway station en route from Manchester and Sheffield was teeming with police, but Benny and his friends avoided them by cycling to Hayfield. Benny rallied the hundreds of Ramblers with an impassioned speech at the quarry, calling for the mass trespass to be the start of a campaign to finally win the right of access to mountains. After Benny had scrambled off his impromptu pulpit, the whistle blew and the trespassers moved off towards Kinder, cheerfully singing Ramblers' songs. Bernard Benny Rossman, a political and conservation activist and a member of the Young Communist League of Manchester, was one of the leaders. Scuffles broke out with gamekeepers trying to keep them off the moors, but the Ramblers were able to reach their destination and join with other groups. On the return, 5 Ramblers were arrested, with another detained earlier. Trespass was not, and still is not, a criminal offence in any part of Britain, but some would receive jail sentences of 2 to 6 months for offences relating to violence against the keepers. As the men's spokesman, 21-year-old Benny Rossman was to say in his defence at Derby Assizes, "We Ramblers, after a hard week's work in smoky towns and cities, go out rambling for relaxation and fresh air, and we find the finest rambling country is close to us. Our request, or demand, for access to all peaks and uncultivated moorland is nothing unreasonable. The jury, mostly country establishment, thought otherwise, and the 5 were jailed for between 4 and 6 months. By all accounts, the protest was intended to be peaceful, and about 500 men and women took to the hills in defiance of the law, which then decreed those hills and open moorland the sole province of the landed gentry, enabling them to shoot grouse for a few days each August. Keepers armed with sticks confronted the marchers. The Guardian recorded, "The protesters fought a brief but vigorous hand-to-hand struggle with a number of the keepers, and this they won with ease." They then marched to Ashop Head, where they held a meeting before returning in triumph to Hayfield. There will be plenty of bruises carefully nursed in Gorton and other parts of Manchester tonight. Though the protests cost Rossman and his fellow marchers their liberty, their actions created a tide that could not be stemmed.
Give me a hand and love and join your voice.
3 weeks after the trespass, some 10,000 Ramblers held a protest rally at nearby Castleton. The Right to Roam movement was on the march. What Roy Hattersley, the former deputy leader of the Labour Party, was later to describe as the most successful direct action in British history, would lead in 1951 to the creation of the first national park.
May your wings be strong.
Fittingly, it was the Peak District, described as the lungs of the industrial north.
Each of you bears inside of you the gift of love.
In 2000, freedom to roam legislation was passed, finally making lawful what Rossman and his comrades marched for.
Never lose sight of the thrill and the joy of living. Take me to some high place of heather, rock and limb. Scatter my dust and ashes, feed me to the wind, so that I will be part of all you see, the air you are breathing. I'll be part of the curlew's cry and the soaring hawk, the blue milkwort and the sundew hung with diamonds. I'll be riding the gentle wind that blows through your hair, reminding you how we shared in the joy of living.